Ever notice how, like, you act a little different around your boss than you do with your best friends?
Right.
Or maybe how you can feel completely invisible in a huge crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like social psychology is secretly pulling all the strings.
It really is fascinating, isn't it?
Totally. And you sent in some super interesting excerpts from a social psychology textbook, Unit 11.pdf. So that's what we're diving deep into today.
Uh,
How people act in groups and, why you should actually care.
and let me tell you, it's way more than just like common sense.
Oh, I bet.
Social psychology is a real science. It bridges that gap
Hmm.
between, what's happening in your own head and how entire societies like function.
Okay, so no more just assuming everyone thinks like me, right?
Exactly.
So how would you officially define social psychology then?
Hmm. Well, it's basically the study of how your thoughts, your feelings, even your actions are all influenced by other people.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And not even just in a, like, we're hanging out right now kind of way.
What do you mean?
Even just imagining someone's there or like the idea that someone might be watching you. That has an effect on us too.
Whoa, so even just thinking about someone judging my outfit, that counts.
You bet it does.
Yes.
And that's actually what makes this whole deep dive so relevant to your everyday life.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that.
It's all about understanding these like unspoken forces that shape how we interact with each other, whether we're talking about teamwork or persuasion, even those big social movements we see all over the news.
So we're not just talking about small talk here. This stuff gets pretty big.
It really does.
But how did we even go from those everyday observations about people to a whole field of study?
Well, like a lot of fields, it all started with philosophy.
Philosophy.
Yeah. Think back to that classic nature versus nurture debate.
Oh, right. Are we born a certain way or do our experiences, shape us?
Exactly. And social psychology really takes that question head on. Early thinkers were wrestling with whether social behavior is instinctual. Yeah, like McDougall's theory.
Yeah.
Or if it's all learned through interactions.
So is it in our genes to like form cliques or did we pick that up along the way?
Precisely. And for a while, that instinct theory, it held a lot of weight. But then came the rise of experiments, which really changed everything.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. I love a good experiment. What were they testing back then?
Well, picture this. Researchers, they put people in a lab setting and just watched how their performance on a task changed when they were being watched.
Wait, really? So just having an audience changes how we do things?
It totally does. Floyd Allport, a real pioneer in the field, he discovered what he called the social facilitation effect.
Social facilitation.
Yeah, and get this, sometimes having people around actually makes us perform better.
No way.
Yeah. Of course, it depends on the task and the person, but it was a huge discovery that helped establish social psychology as a real science.
I'm going to have to remember that next time I have to give a presentation. So how do we go from these controlled lab settings to understanding, like my chaotic Monday morning commute?
Well, that's where middle range theories come into play. You
Mm.
can think of them as like practical frameworks.
Practical frameworks.
Yeah, these theories are designed to explain behavior within a specific social context, even when we can't control every single factor like in a lab.
Okay, so less about the broad strokes and more about specific interactions.
You got it. One great example is Kurt Lewin's field theory. Basically, it says that your behavior isn't just about the actual situation you're in, but how you personally interpret and experience it.
So like two people could be stuck in the same traffic jam but have totally different reactions.
Exactly. One person's fuming, the other's perfectly content listening to their favorite podcast. Field theory suggests those different reactions are because they're experiencing the situation through their own unique lens. Their past experiences, their goals for the day, even their mood.
Wow.
And that, my friend, is social psychology in action.
This is making me realize how much I just like assume about why people act the way they do. We see their behavior, but not always the forces behind it.
It's like we're all playing this elaborate game with all these unwritten rules, and social psychology gives us the cheat sheet to understanding those rules.
And speaking of cheat sheets, in the excerpt you sent, Unit 1.pdf, there's this part about how social psychology analyzes things differently than, say, sociology or psychology on its own.
Right.
It's all about the level of analysis,
So you
right?
got it. Imagine looking at a huge, intricate tapestry, right?
Yeah? Okay.
Sociology is like taking a few steps back and appreciating the whole picture. The patterns, the overall themes.
Got it.
Like they might study how social class affects voting trends.
Okay, so that's the big picture stuff. Where does individual psychology fit into this tapestry thing?
Individual psychology.
Right.
Well, think of that as taking out a magnifying glass and examining just a single thread in that huge tapestry.
Oh.
They might focus on how a person's upbringing, maybe their genetics, how those things influence their personality.
All right, so we've got the sweeping view and the close-up. Where does social psychology come in?
Social psychology is like focusing on how all those individual threads are woven together.
Ooh, okay.
It studies how people behave in a particular social context, influenced by the real or imagined presence of others.
So less about the thread itself and more about how it interacts with all the other threads to make the overall design.
Exactly. It's about understanding how our thoughts, feelings, actions, all those things, are shaped by that immediate social environment.
This makes me think about, like, conformity. You know, that whole going along with the crowd thing.
Sure.
Would a social psychologist study that?
Absolutely. Conformity is a classic example.
Yeah.
A social psychologist might design an experiment to see how people's answers to a question change based on the answers given by, say, other people in the group.
Oh, that's a good one. I bet they find that people are way more likely to conform than they think.
Often, yeah, that's exactly what the research shows. And it highlights something really important. See, social psychology isn't just about describing behavior. It's about uncovering the ways, often surprising, sometimes even counterintuitive ways, that those social influences actually affect us.
That makes me think about something else from the textbook, this quote from Jean-Paul Sartre. He said, "We can barely be distinguished from our social situations, for they form us and decide our possibilities."
Kind of intense, right?
Yeah.
But it feels relevant here.
It's a powerful statement, that's for sure. And it really gets to the core of what social psychology is all about. Our environments, the people around us, the norms, expectations, all those things, they have a profound impact on who we become.
But does that mean we have no control at all? Are we all just products of our environment?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And it's one that social psychologists have been grappling with for decades. So are we, like, doomed to just be products of our environment? No free will, just social puppets dancing along to, our social programming. I hope that's not what you're saying.
Not at all. While our social surroundings definitely shape us, doesn't mean we're powerless. We have this incredible ability to actually think critically about those influences and make, conscious choices.
Okay, good. Because I was starting to get a little freaked out there for a second. So it's like knowing the rules of the game, but not having to play along blindly.
Right, exactly. Understanding social psychology,
Yeah.
it can be really empowering. It gives you this new level of awareness.
How so?
Well, you can start to see those subtle forces at play, both in your own life and in the world around you.
That's a really good point. It's like once you start to notice those unspoken social norms and biases, you can't unsee them.
Right.
And then it's like you get to choose how you want to respond.
Precisely. Do you conform? Do you challenge the status quo? You can even use that knowledge of persuasion for good.
Oh, that's interesting.
It all starts with just understanding the social forces that are at play.
This has been a wild ride. We went from philosophy to lab experiments to unpacking our own everyday behaviors. I'm starting to see the world in a whole new light now.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
It's like that moment when you suddenly realize there's this whole hidden dimension to reality that you just never noticed before. And social psychology, it gives you the tools to navigate that dimension.
I have to say, I'm fascinated, but also a little overwhelmed. There's just so much to learn,
Oh, for sure.
but in a good way, of course.
It's definitely a lifelong journey of discovery. And the best part, you can start applying what you've learned today, right away.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Just pay attention to how people interact, notice those subtle cues and influences, and keep asking yourself why.
Consider that my new mission. So, to our listeners, if you're anything like me, you're probably looking at the world a little differently now. Remember that feeling next time you're in a crowd, or maybe you're negotiating a deal, or even just trying to figure out why your coworkers do the things they do.
Right.
Social psychology, it really is everywhere. And now you've got the knowledge to start decoding it all.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content like this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community for more insights into psychology and personal development. Let's grow and learn together. See you in the next video.